Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes such as family dynamics, betrayal, and trust. It does not contain explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. I was already halfway under the covers when I heard the knock. Light, hesitant, more like someone asking for a moment of your time than demanding entry. It was 11:47 p.m. Not the time for casual visits, especially in our house, where unspoken boundaries were how we all kept the peace. I hesitated, debating whether to ignore it and pretend I was asleep. But then I heard his voice. "Monica? You awake?" It was Eric, my 24-year-old stepson. I sat up, heart suddenly ticking faster. We didn't talk much, not in a personal way. Ever since I married his dad, Mark, 3 years ago, Eric and I kept things polite. Civil, surface level. There had always been something off. Like he was watching me, waiting for something. Or maybe I was imagining that, reading too much into every long stare or awkward silence. Still, this wasn't normal. He'd never come to me like this before. "Yeah," I called out, my voice tight. "Come in." He opened the door slowly, like he was afraid to see what was behind it. When he stepped inside, I noticed right away his face was pale, jaw clenched like he was holding something back. This wasn't about some late-night snack or minor emergency. He didn't sit. Just stood there, rubbing the back of his neck, shifting from foot to foot like the floor was too hot. I motioned to the edge of the bed. "Eric, what's going on?" He looked me in the eye for the first time and said, "I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen all the way through before you say anything." The room went quiet. Even the hum of the ceiling fan seemed to fade out. My stomach turned, heavy with that instinctive dread you get when you know life is about to pivot. "Okay," I said slowly, bracing. "I'm listening." He sat, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the carpet like it might open up and swallow him. And then he started talking. What came out of his mouth over the next few minutes, honestly, I still don't know how to explain it. It wasn't a crime. It wasn't something violent or illegal. But it cracked something open in me. Something I didn't even know I'd sealed shut. He talked about secrets. About watching things unravel in our family from the sidelines. About Mark, his father, making choices that changed the trajectory of their lives in ways I'd never known. And about how I was involved in it all, even if I hadn't realized it. "You were the only one who didn't know," Eric said, his voice shaking. "I've kept this for years, but I can't anymore. You deserve to know what he did. And what I did." He finally looked up, eyes glassy, almost pleading. "I'm not proud of any of it. But I need to say it. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stared at this young man sitting at the foot of my bed, holding a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. And that's when Mark's bedroom door down the hall opened. I couldn't look at Eric. Not fully. My eyes were locked on the hallway as Mark's silhouette paused just outside the door. He didn't step in. He didn't speak. But he was there, listening. Eric's hands curled into fists on his lap. "I told you this would happen." My heart pounded. He didn't hear everything. Eric gave a humorless laugh. Trust me, he heard enough. The tension in the room tightened like a noose. 3 people. 3 versions of the same story. Only one truth. And I was suddenly at the center of it, whether I wanted to be or not. Mark finally walked away, his footsteps heavy, disappearing back into the darkness. The door didn't shut. "I should have told you earlier," Eric muttered. "You think?" My voice cracked before I could pull it back. "You waited 3 years, Eric. And you dropped this on me at midnight." His shoulders sagged. He looked smaller, like the weight of everything he carried had finally caved in on him. "You have to understand something," he said. "I didn't just keep this from you to protect my dad. I kept it because part of me didn't want to ruin what you thought we were." I blinked, caught off guard. "What we were?" "You thought we were a family." He looked up at me now, voice raw. I watched you try to hold this house together like it was yours to fix. And I let you. Even when I knew it was built on a lie. I felt like the floor had tilted under me. All the dinners, holidays, small talk at the kitchen counter, had any of it been real? I thought you hated me, I admitted quietly. I did, he said. At first. When you showed up with your clean slate energy and your perfect optimism. You didn't know what kind of man my dad really was. And I was angry that you didn't see it. Then why not tell me? He exhaled sharply. Because I saw how happy you looked. Happier than my mom ever was. And that scared the hell out of me. There it was. The deeper wound. Not just about betrayal, but loss. Resentment. A buried grief he'd never unpacked. My mom left because of him, he continued. Not just physically, mentally. She checked out. And watching you step into her place like it was nothing, that made it worse. I sat in silence, processing. Not because I thought he was being unfair, but because he was being honest. More honest than anyone in this house had been since I walked into it. What did Mark do, Eric? I asked, finally steadying my voice. What did he do that broke you like this? He didn't answer right away. He just stood up, walked over to the bedroom window, and stared out into the backyard. His voice, when it came, was quiet. It's not just what he did. It's what I did to cover for him. He turned, face shadowed by the soft light, eyes bloodshot. I'm not innocent, Monica. And when I tell you the rest, you might not forgive either of us. My mouth went dry. Then why start now? Because he's lying to you again. And this time, it's not just emotional. It's dangerous. A long silence stretched between us, heavy with things unspoken. And then, from down the hall, I heard Mark's voice. Eric, come here. Now. Eric didn't move. Neither did I. Mark's voice echoed from the hallway again, low but firm, with that edge I'd learned not to ignore. The kind of tone that didn't ask, it expected. Eric, he repeated. Come here. Now. Eric turned to me. If I go, he's going to spin this. He always does. He'll make me look unstable, bitter, whatever fits. And if you don't go? I asked. Eric looked down. Then it gets worse. Before I could respond, he was already walking out. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence left behind was louder than anything Mark had said. I sat in the dark, thoughts racing. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an email from work ignored. My mind couldn't go there. Not now. I needed answers. But what I had was a half-spilled truth, a husband who suddenly felt like a stranger, and a stepson whose confession had cracked open a version of my life I didn't recognize anymore. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I tried not to eavesdrop, but the house wasn't soundproof, and Mark was never subtle when he got angry. I heard the low rumble of voices from the kitchen. Something slammed. Maybe a cabinet. Maybe a fist. I got up, grabbed my robe, and crept toward the stairs. Halfway down, I stopped. Through the dim light of the hallway, I saw Mark standing alone by the sink, back turned, shoulders tense. Eric was nowhere in sight. I stepped into the kitchen slowly. Where's Eric? Mark didn't answer. Just ran a hand over his face like he was trying to wipe away the conversation. I asked you a question, I said, sharper this time. He looked over, eyes bloodshot. He left. Left? What does that mean? He stormed out. You know how he gets. Emotional. Unreasonable. There it was, his old trick. Reduce everything to emotion. Paint Eric as unstable. Divert attention from the real issue. I didn't buy it anymore. He told me some things tonight, I said. Things about you. Mark's expression didn't change, but I saw the shift in his posture, tense, guarded. Monica, I know what he said. And I can explain. He said you're lying to me. Again. I did lie, Mark admitted. Years ago. about things that had nothing to do with you. But Eric, he's emails, bank transfers. The night everything went wrong, I didn't touch the envelope. Not yet. Mark stepped back. I protected him. And you? You think you're caught between us, Monica, but you don't realize if this comes out, we all go down. I felt the pressure build in my chest. I was no longer just a woman in a fractured marriage. I was sitting on a secret that could implode what little was left of our family. And outside, I heard the unmistakable sound of Eric's car pulling back into the driveway. The second I heard the car door slam outside, I knew Eric was coming back for a reason. Mark must have known too, because he grabbed the envelope off the counter and stuffed it into the drawer again like it was nothing. Like this wasn't the kind of thing that could split a family wide open. I stepped in front of him before he could shut it completely. Don't. You said I deserved the truth, let me see it. But he just stared at me. Not yet. I opened my mouth to argue, but the front door creaked. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Eric walked into the kitchen, chest rising and falling like he'd just run through fire. His eyes landed on Mark, then on me, and for a second, nobody moved. The silence felt radioactive. You showed her, didn't you? Eric's voice was low. You couldn't help yourself. I didn't, Mark said. But maybe I should. Eric scoffed. So now you're the moral one? After everything? I stepped between them. What's in the envelope, Eric? What is this really about? He looked at me angry, yes, but scared too. Not just of Mark. Of me seeing a version of him he couldn't explain away. I did something, he said. But I wasn't the only one involved. Dad used it to control me. Mark shook his head. That's not control. That's protection. You wanted to disappear. I kept you here. Eric laughed bitterly. You kept me here because I knew too much. You were scared I'd blow your whole life up, and now I might. I was done standing in the middle of a chess game I didn't sign up for. I walked to the drawer, opened it, and pulled out the envelope. Mark didn't try to stop me this time. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, wire transfer receipts. One name jumped out at me, my own, and a date from a year before I even met Mark. My breath caught. What is this? Eric stepped closer. It's how he got you. That account? He used it to transfer money to someone tied to your old firm. To sabotage your audit. You were fired for it, remember? Blacklisted? I froze. I hadn't thought about that in years. A quiet collapse in my career that had never made sense. You think it was just a coincidence you met him right after? Eric said. That he helped you get back on your feet? He orchestrated all of it. I turned to Mark, feeling the floor tilt again. Tell me he's lying. Mark didn't say a word. You ruined me to save me? My voice cracked. I needed you out of that world, Mark said, like it made sense. You were drowning. You didn't even know. I stepped back. I didn't want to hear the justifications. Not from him. Eric spoke again, quieter now. He built your life around guilt, Monica. Around his version of loyalty. And mine, too. The envelope slipped from my fingers, papers scattering across the tile floor like broken trust. Mark moved toward me, but I backed away. Don't. I never wanted to hurt you, he said. But you did, I whispered. Eric looked at me. You're not the only one with a decision to make now. The clock ticked loud in the silence that followed. We were 3 people standing in a house built on lies, and one of us was about to bring the whole thing down. Then, from outside, the doorbell rang. None of us were expecting anyone. The doorbell rang again. 3 rings this time, fast, urgent. I looked at Eric. He looked at Mark. No one moved. Then I broke the silence. I'll get it. Mark's voice stopped me before I reached the hallway. Wait. I turned. His face had gone pale. You know who it is? Eric said flatly. Mark didn't answer. I kept walking, pulse racing. Whoever was outside had perfect timing or terrible luck. Either way, they were about to walk into something they couldn't walk back out of. When I opened the door, the cold air hit me first. Then the figure standing in the porch light. A woman. Mid-30s. Long coat, sharp eyes. She looked straight past me. "I need to speak to Mark Harper," she said. "Now." Mark stepped into the hallway, slow like he was walking toward a gun pointed at his chest. The woman didn't flinch. "You remember me, don't you?" Mark nodded once. "Tight. You shouldn't be here." She pulled out a folded document and held it up. "I wouldn't be if you hadn't lied to the wrong people." Eric appeared behind me. He froze when he saw her. "No. No way. You're not." She looked at him, and suddenly her expression softened. "Hello, Eric." I turned. "Who is she?" Mark rubbed his forehead, like it physically hurt to keep standing there. "Her name is Dana. She's Eric's sister." I stared at him. "What?" "Half-sister," Eric said quietly, eyes locked on her. "You disappeared when I was 9. "I didn't disappear," Dana said, stepping in now. "I was removed." Eric's face twisted. "Removed?" She looked straight at Mark. "He didn't tell you that part, did he? How I ended up in foster care while he raised you in this house." My knees almost buckled. "Mark, what is she talking about?" "She's lying," he said, too quickly. Dana ignored him. "My mother wasn't unstable like he claimed. She found out things. Dangerous things. About money. About people Mark was working with. She tried to report it. 2 days later, she was gone. Dead. Car crash. Suspicious circumstances." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. "I was 6, Dana continued. "He didn't even fight for custody. Said I was too damaged to bring into his new life." She looked at Eric. "You were the golden boy. I was the risk." Eric was shaking now. "You're telling me I had a sister and he erased you?" "He didn't erase me," Dana said. "He buried me." Mark looked like he was unraveling right there in the hall. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like," I demanded. Mark didn't answer. Couldn't. His silence said more than any lie ever could. Dana held up the document again. "This is a subpoena. You're being investigated for financial fraud and obstruction of justice tied to your former clients." I came because I wanted Eric to hear it from me, not from the news. I felt the room tilt again. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was federal. Criminal. Eric turned to Mark, his voice quiet, deadly calm. "You didn't just ruin your own life. You dragged us into it." Mark said nothing. Dana stepped forward, her voice steady. "You have 72 hours to respond. After that, this goes public." She turned to leave, but not before looking me in the eye. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this. But you needed to know the man you married." And just like that, she walked out into the night. Behind me, the house was silent. No one had anything left to say. Not yet. After Dana left, the silence felt too big for the house. Eric sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The subpoena lay on the counter like a grenade no one wanted to touch. Mark leaned against the wall, still trying to look in control, but the cracks were obvious now. Sweat on his brow. Breathing shallow. His empire was finally collapsing, and he knew it. I stood in the middle, heart numb, throat dry, barely holding it together. "You could have told me," I said, looking straight at Mark. "Years ago. About Dana. About what you did to me, to Eric, to all of us. You had 100 chances." Mark didn't answer. He couldn't. All his practice speeches had run dry. Eric finally spoke. "You used to tell me some people were just born to survive at any cost. I thought you meant other people. Not you." Mark rubbed his face, exhausted. "I did what I had to keep everything from falling apart." "No," I cut in. "You built everything to fall apart. You just thought you could control the pieces. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something close to regret. But it didn't matter anymore. I turned to Eric. What are you going to do? He shrugged. What do you think? I'm going to testify. She's not going down alone. Neither am I. I nodded. It was the right choice. The only choice, even if it meant everything came crashing down. I'll do the same, I said. If they want my side of what happened, how I lost my job, how I was manipulated, I'll give it. On the record. Mark shook his head slowly. You're throwing away everything. No, Eric said. You already did. The air in the room changed. There was no more yelling, no more fire. Just the quiet, heavy weight of people finally choosing truth over fear. Mark walked to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Then I guess this is it. I stared at him. For a second, I thought I might feel pity. But all I felt was relief. The pretending was over. I loved you, I said. That's the worst part. I really, genuinely loved you. Mark didn't meet my eyes. I know. And you used that. Just like you used Eric's guilt. And Dana's silence. You broke every part of this family and somehow still acted like we owed you something. He looked up finally. So now what? We turn on each other in court. Eric stood. No. You stand in court. We tell the truth. After that, we're done. I nodded. We move on. From you. From this. Mark let out a shaky breath, like he was already fading into the past. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just looked down. Eric walked out first. I followed. As I reached the door, Mark spoke one last time. There's more. I turned. What? His eyes were glassy. About Dana. About what happened to her mother. You think I lied, but I wasn't the only one involved. I stared at him, heart sinking. Who? He hesitated. Then said a name that hit me like a slap. A name I hadn't heard in years. Someone from my own past. And just like that, I realized the story wasn't over. Not even close. 3 weeks after that night, I found myself sitting across from Eric in a courthouse hallway, waiting for everything to become official. The walls were cold, the lighting sterile, but for the first time in a long time, I felt clear. Mark had turned himself in. Eventually. The weight of it all, Dana's return, Eric's decision to testify, the proof he could no longer deny, caught up to him. I think he knew this was his final shot at salvaging what little humanity he had left. He confessed to wire fraud, obstruction, and financial manipulation tied to my career takedown years ago. But the real shock? He gave us the name of the person connected to Dana's mother's death, my former boss. I hadn't thought about Greg Whitmore in years. The man who quietly blackballed me after I blew the whistle on unethical auditing practices. Turns out, he and Mark had been working together to cover up more than bad numbers. Dana's mom had uncovered something too big, and they'd buried it. That connection blew open an old, cold investigation and gave Dana the closure she'd waited half her life for. As for Eric, we talk every week now. Therapy, legal meetings, quiet dinners without guilt slowly. We're building something real. The boy who once saw me as the intruder now trusts me enough to call when he's overwhelmed. The weight he carried for years, believing he was responsible for covering his father's lies, is finally off his shoulders. Dana and I, we've had long talks. Some angry, some healing. She doesn't trust easily, and I don't blame her. But we share something now. Not just the wreckage Mark left behind, but a choice. We both chose to step forward, speak the truth, and rebuild. The house is sold. Mark is serving his sentence. And I've started consulting again on my own terms. I help others who've been manipulated in business or relationships, turning that past shame into something useful, something honest. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who built their lives on secrets. And sometimes healing doesn't look like forgiveness. Sometimes it's distance, truth, accountability. Eric, Dana, and I aren't a picture-perfect family, but we're a real one now. And that's enough. Did you enjoy the story? Let me know in the comments. What part hit you the hardest? And what kind of stories would you like to hear next? Family drama? Unexpected confessions? Real-life betrayals? Drop your suggestions below.